good.
Okay.
Sounds
I'm loud anyway, so.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get your attention real quick. We're going to start in a couple minutes. A couple things. So I'm seeing a lot of the same faces coming through, which is good. Sounds like you guys are getting great value out of this. Do me a favor. We really want to spread the word. We have great entrepreneurs like Feargus and yourselves here in Orange County. We also want to open up this forum to other upcoming entrepreneurs that we see potential in, so that we can actually start growing the ecosystem and start developing the hot pocket. No pun intended to the little cheese and pepperoni guy. But the thing I would like you guys to do is, if you can, right now shoot me an email, andrew@getdigsy.com, so pull out your smartphones. I'm going to send you a link. We record all of these. We put them at socialstartup.org, and we also put them on our Digsy blog. If you can write a quick blog on your blog and link back to it so that other people, so your network gets exposed to this content. The reason we record these is because some people can't attend, and if they can get value out of this and extract it, it's massive for Orange County. So it's not only going to help us attract and really groom more startups, but it's also going to help us with the investment community, and it's also going to help our businesses as well. So can I get you guys to commit to that? You guys had coffee this morning? Can I get you guys to commit to that? All right. Yeah. All right, Steve, so how much time do we have?
You got 45 minutes.
No, I mean, do you want us to start now?
Yeah, you're on.
Cool.
I gave you the thumbs.
Let me clean this here. All right, so I want to give just a special thanks for Eureka. They provide us with a coffee, and Euro Cafe has discounted items for us. If you guys need a place to work, Eureka has some good programs for founders here for Founders Coffee, so you can actually just, I forgot what it is. I think she gives you like some free space somehow, some way, but you can get a tour. There's a co-working space upstairs for some really cool startups, and then they have spaces here, individual spaces if your company gets too big and outgrows that. They have a lot of events here, as you guys already know. So if I can get just an applause for Eureka, please. If you guys do want to get a tour or anything, Taylor is the person to blame or to look for that, but I guess she's gone. Taylor, she's a girl that was doing the volume thingy. So I would like to thank you, Feargus, for coming in. So I really appreciate your time. Being CEO is not easy.
No.
And you've done some really awesome things for me, I think. And you know, everybody can talk about strategy, development, product, but one of the key things is actual people.
Yeah.
And you have a long history in the video game industry and development industry, so I think one of the biggest things that I was able to achieve was to create a good culture at Digsy. We have Chris Seuss here, who's working with Digsy. And he's gotten to see what our culture is, but I don't think we would have been able to shape that without your mentorship, so thank you.
You are welcome.
I would like for them to get to know you a little bit, because people know Obsidian, but they don't really know Obsidian. Once you step in and you see what the culture's like, you kind of wish you were there. So how'd you get started? Before Obsidian,
we had our company Halloween party last night, and so it was a little bit strange for me because just on Monday we hit 202 employees, and so it's kind of got to that point now that unless I'm not very careful, I don't know everybody and I don't know their names, and which is another step really for a company in sort of its culture and how to deal with that. And I guess my luck has been is that in the first company I worked for. And I guess that's the other, and one of the things I was talking about at the party, I sort of have this strange adult life in companies in that I've been at 2 companies since I was 21, and I'm 45. So in 24 years, I worked at one company for 13 years, and now I've been running Obsidian for over 12 and a half. And so I have not the prototypical, I guess, career path that a lot of people have had. But I think in some ways that's been lucky because I got to see the other company that we all used to work for. We used to actually work for a company, all the partners, I say we, my partners that started Obsidian, we all used to work for a company called Interplay, which actually was just down on Carmen here. And they're still kind of around, but for the most part, they kind of grew very small. I was like employee 33 when I first started there. They kind of shot up worldwide to about 650 employees. And then unfortunately, they went public, and then it kind of all fell apart.
I remember playing Earthworm Jim.
Yeah, Earthworm Jim was one of them.
And Shiny, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dave Perry from Gaikai
came from Shiny. Yeah, he originally came from Virgin.
Yeah.
And Virgin, unfortunately, we're going to get a little bit of history of video games in Orange County. But Virgin was one of the other game developers and game publishers, they were down actually really close to here as well. They were just down off of Fitch, off of MacArthur. And that's where Dave came from as well. Anyway, so I got the chance to really see a company go small, have a certain culture, and then get big and kind of lose that culture. And I think one of the challenges that we saw with Interplay was as they got much larger, they didn't think enough about how their culture was changing. And they also, I think, tried to stay a small company in certain ways, but now be big. And we kind of really realized that was not something we wanted to do. I think the other thing that we did when we started Obsidian, which I think was I had no idea that this was actually something that was a good thing to have, because a lot of people tell me it's not good, is which there's 5 people started Obsidian, so in essence I have me and four other partners.
Which is good, by the way, because you have the tiebreaker.
Well, yes, yes, we have a tiebreaker. Yeah, we have a tiebreaker, but unfortunately, but the other challenge is it's like you're married to 4 other people, which I'm sure a lot of you know, having that many partners, you're married to 4 other people, and then often the people who start companies are not people who they sometimes have an opinion. And they don't want to give up their opinion. Yeah. So we're often let's just say there's a lot of arguments. But on the flip side, for culture, what it meant is no matter how many employees we have, and unfortunately, there's now 4 of us instead of the 5 that started. But when there was 5 of us, and we were at 100 people, it still meant there was like 20 employees to each owner. So there was always someone that a lot of employees were close to, and actually could keep the culture of the company moving forward. But I think if there's anything the biggest thing that I learned from Interplay that was always frustrating me was that I just never felt I knew what was going on, and that information about what the company was doing or what the company was thinking or where the company was going was just never shared. And so we very simply, it's not none of this is rocket science. We just decided we were going to have a company meeting every 2 weeks. Yeah, every 2 weeks we're going to have a company meeting, and we've continued that to this day. And our opinion on how we treat our people is that we pretty much share everything. Like the only thing that we don't share, and we always open the floor and we let people ask. And the problem is that's scary, right? So when you say, hey, you can ask any question that you want, like there's so many questions you don't want people to ask, right? And so the thing that I would say that was off limits is, no, I'm not going to say how much money is in our checking account, and no, I'm not going to tell you what Steve's salary is, right? That's the only 2 things, right?
Just tell him he works for free.
Yes, that exactly. But everything else, that people could ask anything, and that was awkward sometimes. But what that did for us is it built trust. We all hear the saying, if you treat people like adults, they act like adults. That's totally the way it is. Because I think sometimes people, as your companies get larger, you get to be in fear of your employees and someone, are they going to leave? And is this person, is that person, blah, blah, blah. On the flip side, what we try to be is very, I guess I'm not empathic, it's the wrong word. We try to put ourselves in their shoes. And I know it's uncomfortable to go home to your spouse or partner or alone and go, I don't know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow. And I don't want anybody to ever feel that way. And when people don't feel that way anymore, they don't feel like they know bad things happen in business and they can lose their job, but they don't have an irrational fear of it. That's always helped us. And so that honesty, and I guess when it all comes down to, our feeling is when you are honest, like absolutely honest, respectful honest, not brutal honest, but that helps your culture stay the same.
So this transparency, it seems to be a big theme across companies that a lot of entrepreneurs admire.
Yeah.
But let's go through the root of that. Why is trust, and why? Okay, so transparency helps create trust, but why? What does that do for you? What does that, it builds good culture, but what does that do?
So trust, it does a couple things. You know, and some of it is you know, we've also had to look at it from the standpoint of we're all in our mid to late 40s now, right? The guys, people running the company. We have a lot of people that work for us who are, you know, in their early 20s. People in their early 20s do not think like people in their mid 40s. You know, that's a big, wow, that was good. But the thing is, that we had to really look at that, you know, and a part of trust is that, and not that I'm not a millennial, it's not how I still, for some reason, I still need to have a landline. But a part of that, I think, even with millennials, it was, again, there's a lot of they want to know. It's not such, you know, and I don't know if it's my parents who was like, you know, say, hey, go take that hill, they go take that hill. You know, if we were told, go take that hill, we might ask like 2 questions, and then go take the hill. Millennials is like, well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of oversimplifying, but that was really a big part of that.
Just the buy-in.
It was a lot of it was buy-in, and the other thing is, at least for us, although I think this applies to so many companies, is, you know, so much of what we all do is creative, no matter what it is, whether it's games or it's cheese or it's gift cards or it's, you know, whatever it is, it takes so much creativity. And when people aren't worrying, and when people, like, it's, you know, they feel, it's gonna sound stupid, but when they feel that we have their back, like we're looking out for them, they stop spinning on kind of like, I gotta make sure, every day I gotta make sure my resume is up to date.
Yeah.
They don't.
So you get ultimate productivity.
We get a lot, and they just feel, because we're taking care of it, that their minds can be free to be creative and make awesome things. And for us, that's what matters, right?
Right.
And I think that tied to the trust it's also easier when we have to ask people to do things they don't want to do. Like, you know, creative people don't always want to do it. Like, you know, I in my early career, I got to work on chess games and bridge and like games that, you know, they were great games to make, and I learned a lot, but it's, you know, when we have to ask someone, you know, you have to work on this game, you have to do this thing for the next 3 months or 4 months, we're sorry. When we say it is 3 to 4 months, and then they'll go and get to do the cool thing, they trust us, and they don't start going looking for a job. And that helps a lot.
You know, it's kind of interesting, when a lot of people talk about culture, it seems to be, when I'm talking to fellow entrepreneurs, especially ones that, you know, are either in the process of fundraising or they're just getting off the ground. It's one of those things where the entrepreneurs feel like it's important, but it's not that important. I would say that as you go through building a company, you start seeing that it is the thing. It is not an afterthought, it needs to be designed. Can you explain, since you are a successful company here locally, culture builds trust, you're able to get productivity, at the same time you're able to build a cohesive team going in one direction, but what does that do for an entrepreneur? Is it recruiting, aside from, why is it so important, so that we can actually share with the group here how important it is for you to design a culture out of the gate?
Well, I think the first is you just have to acknowledge that you're going to have a culture, right, and of some kind, you know, and the way I always said it, and this is, you know, not to say, I'm not trying to say anything bad about the company Interplay we used to work for, but some people, like, as people would talk about Interplay, they would talk about Interplay as like this other, like, being, that it was this being out there, the Interplay beast, and it was oppressing them.
They did have beasts in the building.
Yeah. So, but it was weird, because, like, if you went and talked to Brian Feargus Urquhart, the company, or come talk to me, I was one of the division presidents, and like, there was no, like, we individually were not the big Interplay beast, but it was this thing that sort of like, and I think that the unfortunate thing is that your companies, as they get larger, you know, that somehow they get a life of their own, that people sort of like, oh, that's just the way it is here. And we always wanted to try to fight the whole, that's just the way it is here. And we talk about that often. As soon as we tell people, as soon as you find yourself saying, oh, that's just the way it is here, then you need to be in one of our offices. Because if it is, that's, I guess, what it is. But if it's not, and we're doing something wrong, we we really need to fix it. But I guess generating culture, the other, as we looked at, and this is gonna sound really strange, when we were 5 people, we wrote an employee handbook. And we wrote an employee handbook like something like big companies do, or as you get larger, you write an employee handbook, in which this is our vacation time, this is that. And we've, you know, and we, you know, and our first employee, like, here's your employee handbook, and they kind of looked at us kind of strange, like, why, that's me. You know, I'm the employee, and I guess this is my handbook. But what it did is it said, because we were on the road to being a bigger company. You know, we never intended to be 200 people, but we always intended to be 50 to 100 people. And so having that handbook and sort of saying it, you know, this is to an extent accepting we are a corporation, we are a business, and so a part of us, no matter if we're making games and you know, I don't dress like this normally. Normally I'm in a t-shirt and shorts every day in the office.
You should have come with that.
No, this is business. No, and so anyway, so. And it was funny, some of our early employees actually said, oh my, like, I worked at other small developers that felt more like a family. This feels more like a company. And the first couple times people said that, I was like, oh, I've screwed up. Like, I did something wrong. Like that this is, and then, but I thought about it more and I said, but we did this to be a company. We can feel like a family, we can do things like a family. We can, you know, I'm a big believer in, you know, stuff happens in people's lives, and so, and you know, I kind of say to people, they'll come and something bad's happened, you know, a parent has cancer, or there's something wrong with their kids, or they need to buy a house, or there's all these different things, and they're like, and they feel that they're asking something from the company that's above and beyond. And I said, look, you know, we do this for the long term, you know, and if something like this happens, I mean, we don't want stuff like this to happen with everybody every week. But like, we will go above and beyond for every single employee when things like that happen. You know, I mean, a guy, you know, one of our programmers, his dad, they called and his dad just had a heart attack, and he literally was just sitting there and he didn't know what to do. Like, and we just took over. We just said, go home, get a suitcase, put some stuff in it, come back here. When you come back here, there'll be a car to get you to the airport. There'll be a plane ticket, and we'll get you out of there. We'll get you there. And we didn't know cost. He didn't pay for it. We just took care of it. And
that's great.
And there's no employee handbook that says to do that.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's a lot when it comes to culture, is this constant balance that we try to, from being a family to being a business. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's how, at least, I guess there's no rule set that we try to do that. But I guess the thing is sometimes you have to go by the handbook and say, no, there's 10 vacation days. You can't have 14 vacation days every single year because you want them. But on the flip side, if someone calls up and says, you know, my dad was in an accident, get out of here, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then you feel like a family, and that's, I guess, the thing that we've always tried to do.
That's great. I really like that. The interesting thing about the culture that you guys have built is you're a tech company, we're a tech company, you guys have tech companies. Recruiting's hard.
It can be, yeah.
And retention's hard too. So has your culture helped you with recruiting and retention?
Yeah, I think I will say yes. I think there's a part of what we do. So what we specifically do, Obsidian, so we make games, as Andrew was saying. Specifically, we make a kind of game called role-playing game, which is, if you've ever heard of, like Dungeons and Dragons or stuff like that. We make games like that. That actually helps our recruitment, and maybe the lesson there is our name is synonymous with something. It's not just with games, it's with the type of game. So people know us by what we do. We don't just do random things. We don't try to do random things. And so that helps with recruitment, because if someone wants to make role-playing games, they know us and they want to come work for us. But that's just one thing that makes it easier. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I think the other thing with recruitment is, I don't even know if we're very good at it. I know we have 200 employees, we must have been able to hire some, but it is a question that I have. Now, all that I can say, when I look at it sounds silly. Where we are, so we're at the Spectrum. We're at the Spectrum, like where the Cheesecake Factory is, there's the building right there. Smile Brands is on the top of it. Why I bring that up is, like, we moved there specifically because the people who work for us are young, and they like that idea of being, and I do too, of course, being right across from restaurants and all that kind of stuff. So we did that specifically for recruiting purposes, other than we like being there. And so that helps. And I think that I think the primary thing that, again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the company meeting and telling people about like everything that's going on. The thing we do in our interviews, because when someone gets to the interview stage, they come in and they go through, I mean, this is stuff everybody here knows, I'm sure. I mean, they go through 5 or 6 interviews with different groups of people from the team they're going to work on, not from the team that they're going to work on. But what everybody does in all those meetings is they kind of grill, they don't grill the person, they grill the person, but they constantly ask them, do you have any questions for us? What do you think of us? Have you ever heard of, do you have concerns about us? What do you think? And we pull everything we can. And then when they do ask questions, even if they're difficult questions, everybody in the interview knows to answer them truthfully. Again, not the how much is in the checking account and what Steve makes, but anything else, like, the hard question is, in 2012 you guys had a layoff. We did, absolutely. Well, do you think there's going to be other layoffs? We don't know. There might be. This is this thing that is hard about any business. And the game industry goes like this. So we don't try to sell them on something, but we try to sell them on us that we're honest, we're upfront, we're pragmatic, we are, we believe in constantly moving forward. And by representing that and letting them ask as many questions as we ask them, we do really well. I mean, when we have an in-person interview, like if someone has gotten to that stage in an in-person interview, I don't know the stats, but if we want to hire them coming out of that day, I would say 90%. They will come work for us, even if we're offering. To be honest, even if we're not always offering as much people as much as other studios.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a business that's very niche, and
Yep.
Orange County has a lot of video game companies,
Mm-hmm.
and the software and the technical talent that you need is usually very niche as well. So, what do you do when you're recruiting and your buddies at Blizzard or like
Right.
it's like how does there's like the intercultural between companies. How do you make sure you don't piss off your neighbor?
So, well, it's interesting. So we don't cold call, right? So we will never cold call anybody locally, and very rarely do people get cold called from other places. Now, obviously, recruiting firms, headhunters are what we call. Sometimes they'll start hitting our company, and I'll have to make a call and just say, hey, what's going on? You're calling a lot of our programmers. What's up? And I do it. Sometimes I don't know that our recruiters are calling, like cold calling other developers, and sometimes the guys that I know running the other companies, they don't know either. But there is a certain amount of employees that kind of go back and forth between the companies, and that's healthy, I think. I mean, I like the idea that this is going to be like a weird thing. So one of the recruiting things that actually helps us is the fact that if someone comes and works for us, one of the things we say, because they're maybe a little worried about like, well, how really firm is the company? I said, look, if you come work for us and something happens, there are within like a mile radius of Obsidian, there is probably another 1,500 to 1,800 game development jobs. I mean, not open that day, but but there are that many people doing that job. And so if you come work for us, something goes wrong, or you end up not liking us, then it's not like you've moved to Bismarck, North Dakota. If that's correct. I don't care. I was trying to remember my state capitals. That it's the only game developer. So that's a weird recruiting thing of where we actually acknowledge there's all these other people here. And
so how do you recruit then? If you're not, most everybody came out of Interplay.
Yeah.
Either they were Interplay from the beginning or they were Interplay through acquisition, right? And I remember the Interplay buildings, they used to look like caves. They used to look like all the games. It was really cool. And they had like the pig guy.
Yes, yeah, that guy.
I forgot what game that was. And that was like literally like down the street. You guys had like 4 or 5 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
How do you recruit then if you're not cold calling your talent? Job ads, job posts?
Well, okay, so yeah, we're not cold calling locally, and we don't. Like, I have our intern, I have a hiring manager recruiter that works is full time for us, but we also, I don't know, it's a hard. A lot of times when we put jobs up, people weirdly want to come work for us. So Part of it's that, you know. I would say that the most difficult, which is probably what's difficult for everybody doing tech, is programming, right? It's funny because I often get asked, you know, by kids, because I do some stuff at colleges and things like that, and they always ask, well, what kind of job should I have? I go, be a network programmer. Like, if you just want to rewrite, I mean, I don't know any game company, and I'm sure almost any tech company who does things like, you know, server client type stuff, who is not always looking for a network programmer. Like, always. Like, I mean, we've had an open position, well, 1 to 5 open positions for network programmers for 5 years. You know, we can never have enough, you know. And I'm like, and I always tell them, I go, if you're good and you do a couple internships, you know, out of college, you could be making $85,000, and then within 3 years, you could be 100, 125, you know. And they're like, really? I mean, I'm like, yeah, you just have to be good at it. You don't have to be great at it. You just you just need to be good at it.
So I would like to get some advice from you. When entrepreneurs, you have the technical entrepreneur turned CEO. So that's, you know, they can be binary or they can be, you know, just some of them have like they're very social and technical at the same time. Then you've got the more business-centric CEO. Tends to be more of like a salesperson, strategist, and they're very binary. So when they're developing culture, what you notice is it's hard for them to kind of like make that leap towards the empathy and the culture and trying to like take care of people. What advice, regardless of the personality type, what advice would you have for a CEO to be able to really grasp that and build a culture from the get-go to really connect with it from a gut level?
So I think the thing you have to accept, or I you know, maybe I do inherently, or I've had to come to it, is that, and again, it's this stupid thing to say, but your people are your company, and that is, in the end, that's all it is. I mean, yes, you need money and you need investors and all that kind of stuff, but your people are your company, and if you don't always go to that and realize that whatever, you're the sales guy or the tech guy, you have to acknowledge that, and then you have to look at it, even, let's say, for the business guy. So we try to, you know, we're not a giant company, but we try to offer medical benefits as much as Microsoft, you know. I mean, and they're not cheap. I mean, it's a big check I gotta sign every month. And there's often been arguments like, well, could we shave off $100 a person? You know, and I'm like, okay, well, then that would save, you know, 20,000, you know, no, 2,000, sorry, I'm doing my math. No, it's 20,000. It would save 20,000 a month. And I'm like, well, we can save 20,000 a month. And I'm like, okay, well, wait. Okay, that's $100 per person. That's it. It's, you know, and like this better medical insurance does a couple of things. One, it is maybe saving more than $100 per month per employee, so they're worried less about that. It's better medical insurance, and so they don't have to go through any of this HMO stuff or anything like that, which means they're probably at the company. They're not wasting time going to lots of all weird doctor's visits and stuff like that. So weirdly, I guess it's everything about an employee is both. It's like we're being nice, but it's also the dollars and cents of it. And I guess the thing is, that's how I always look at it, and I always think people should. It's like, however you look at it, you have to look, what are you getting out of the people that work for you, and what are the decisions you can get for them to be as productive as possible.
You know, that's one thing that I think I've learned from you the most is the fact that you do a very good job at removing obstacles for not only your co-founders, but for your employees, where like you're removing worry, fear, you're creating transparency to build that sticky culture so that you move in one direction. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned is to look at things that way. To say, okay, yeah, we will be saving some money, but look at all the stuff that we're doing where we're actually building a company. And when you were saying, hey, it's after all, it's people, the word company encompasses that it's a group of people. The way that you explain this thing is I envision sort of like a little ball, but it's put together of people.
Right.
And as soon as one falls out, it really just like starts not to like really roll very well. It starts getting jarring. So I think that that's a really good perspective on things. Thank you for that advice.
Yeah, no, and I think another way I always do it with people as well is I had to.
That was a weird analogy, though.
Yeah. I had to really. This is like I was horrible. Like when I was first working at Interplay and kind of had more of an executive role. I was horrible at politics. Like there would be a big executive meeting and people who were all probably 5, 10 years older than me, and someone would say something like, Fergus, what do you think about the blah? And I'm like, that's dumb. You know, so as I learned, you don't say that in those meetings because everybody then just goes, and then I'm not a team player and all this other kind of stuff. So I had to learn. I had to learn a lot of that stuff, and then the big thing I had to learn was, again, the idea is not to win every battle; it's to win the war. And I think what we do is we try to apply that to everything. And everything is long term. You know, I mean, obviously we have to have very short-term concerns, and I'm sure what you're doing every day and I'm doing every day and a lot of people in this room every day are how are we not trying to, we have all these fires going on, you know, but if all we're doing is fighting these fires every day, we're not thinking long-term, we're not going long-term. And I think, and it's the same with employees, like this is like every conversation, someone comes into my office and is quitting. You know, I get up, I shake their hand, I thank them for their job here. One of the things we don't do is we don't try to, when people come in and quit, we don't try to convince them to stay. And we even explain why. We say, hey, we respect you enough that you've made this decision and we don't want to complicate it. We don't want to, we're not, unless we get the sense that it is sort of a cry for help and then we'll do something, but generally we don't. We shake their hand, we thank them, we announce, and thank them in our company meetings, and because I look at it again as long term. We hired them because they're awesome. You know, if they go work somewhere else, we've had people go work other places for 10 years and then come back and work for us again. Mm-hmm. And so again, it's long term, and with the employees, it's long term. You don't make it. I guess you were saying, stuff about friction. So we try to create no friction for our employees in what they do every day, and if they come and go from the company, that's fine.
And it's obvious it's worked because of your success,
Yeah.
which is awesome. What we do, obviously, you came in, you kind of saw, before we do these interviews, usually we have some of the entrepreneurs will ask a question, and then you have some guys that have raised money, built and sold companies, et cetera, so we try to help them out. Since I have you on stage, is there anything that we as a community here in Orange County can help Obsidian with? Are you looking for talent, or what can
Network programmers. No,
I actually met one last night.
So I would say the one thing is, which I would say to any time I'm kind of talking about finances in the game business. One of the more interesting things, it's interesting in a weird way, for the game industry, actually is raising capital. So it's a huge challenge in our industry to raise money. There's certain situations where you can raise money. For instance, if I say, hey, look, I have the next Clash of Clans or the next Candy Crush or something like that, and I have a big splashy demo and all this kind of stuff, and then a Chinese publisher, Tencent or Shengyu or something, they'll come in. Oh, here is $40 million. Not really, it's more like $4 million, but that's not kind of what we do, and it's kind of not what actually a lot of the game industry is about. It's not sort of those very quick turnaround things. It's making games that may take 18 months, 2 years, 30 months or something like that. And us trying to find financing has always been very complicated. Lately, what we've tried is there's actually new crowdfunding. So one of the things that we did a number of years ago in 2012 is we used Kickstarter, which is a crowdfunding platform online. And we put.
What was it called?
Huh? Yeah. And we put our idea up there, and what was awesome is people backed us. They gave us about $4 million to do this game. And then over the course of the next 2 years, they gave us another $1 million. And so just from individual people giving us, $20 or $100, we basically put pretty much, we ended up spending about $5.5 million on the game, but we were still completely funded. What's challenging is a lot of the games we actually make, the games we more traditionally make cost a lot more money. They can cost 15, 20, 25, 30, $50 million. And what our challenge is figuring out how to raise that money, but not through traditional places. The way we do it traditionally is through publishers like, if you've heard of Activision or Electronic Arts or Ubisoft. And if you want to find the worst loan ever, go and pitch a game to Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, because this is the deal. And I'm sure in your industries you've seen deals like this. So this is the deal. So the professionals, take that for what you will. The professionals come to you and say, okay, we have a whole new idea for this new intellectual property. It's a cool game. It's awesome. We have the technology. So what I want is I want you to give me $30 million, and then you can own everything that we make. So you'll own it. And then once you've made, let's say 4 times what you give us, you're then going to let us have 10% of some, let's say 20% of some net like the movie industry. And so that's always been the challenge for us, is because we love what we do, we love making games, but often when we want to make something bigger, we have to go and basically, to be able to do what we want, we have to give it all away. And
that sucks.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. And then not necessarily make a lot on the back end either.
Yeah. So we actually 3 weeks ago we had Jeff Curry over here from Bigboard. Actually, they're located down the street from your office. SaaS, big data platform, AI type stuff. What was interesting is he's a big data company, and he raised for over $1 million on different crowdfunding platforms. And then he raised the rest from like CCA or different angels.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. So aside from Kickstarter, what else?
So that's the kind of thing for me. And you're saying what we're always looking for.
Yeah.
We're always looking for as an example, like every game that we've made in the last almost 20 years has made money. So anybody who invested in any of our, if they were investment vehicles, people would make money.
Yeah.
But trying to get investments in a game, what we do I know is weird, and it's not a lot of people understand what it is, and it's not like buying commercial property or things like that. And so that's always been our big challenge, is figuring out how to grow the business when we want to do something bigger.
Yeah.
Like when we did the Kickstarter game, Pillars of Eternity, that was a great game and we've made money on it, and that's cool, but it's not the kind of game that you see in Best Buy. It's not a big console game on PlayStation or Xbox.
It takes a lot more money than
those take a lot more money, yeah. And so that's the thing we're trying to figure out, is how to raise that money.
We actually have friends in that space, so we'll make sure to connect offline. All right, guys. If it's okay, I'd like to open up for Q&A.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have a microphone somewhere. Deepak, do you know where the microphone is? So we can get. You guys, whoever has questions, please state your first name, last name, social security number, PIN number, address, shoe size. Just say your name, your company, and your position, please. Did we get the microphone? All right, actually, we can hear you, so you don't need that. So, any questions in the crowd? Yes. Oh. Jeff?
Do you use the internships a lot to drive people through and identify talent for the company?
Yes, we do a lot. So, I mean, luckily, even in the kind of local Orange County area, there's Art Institute and Westwood College. Oddly, we don't do a lot of internships from UCI. And it's not knocking UCI. I think they're an awesome university. The computer science doesn't work as well for what we do. But the computer science at UCI is more focused on internet, and we're focused on making, I was going to say we hire real programmers. That's the wrong way of putting it. Sometimes my mouth gets ahead of me.
We'll edit that part.
Exactly. But anyways, yeah. So we do a lot of internships, and we pay. That's the other thing. We also try to acknowledge living in Orange County, even if you're on an intern, it sucks if you have it getting $8 an hour. We kind of just throw them in, and it is amazing. I mean, I'm sure everybody's here familiar with having interns, but it's amazing just from the standpoint of just the creativity, but also, to be honest, watching a 20-year-old kind of around the company, and then all the old dogs. What's going on? Stop! But they have to keep up. And I think that's a weird side effect of bringing interns in. Yes.
Billy Gozum, can you talk a little bit about your onboarding process? Do you pair a new hire with a more senior employee, or do you just let them out into the wild?
So it depends. The first thing when we're doing onboarding, we try to have a lot of good documentation first off. So and I can't say we're great, but we try to get better at it all the time. So what we use two primarily. We use kind of 3 systems, but primarily we use for our documentation. We use Confluence. If anybody's used Confluence, it's awesome as sort of a wiki system that is actually like professional and not, you don't have to figure out all these HTML codes. So I would always really recommend Confluence if you're trying to build a database of information. So what we do is specifically have documentation up there about like, this is how the project works, this is where you get it, this is where you get your tools. This is like, we just added this thing where like, here's the entire hierarchy of the company with pictures, and this is what this person does, but this is what they have done, this is what they did before they got here, so everybody gets a little bit of information like that. Now, as it has to do with their specific job, I would say in certain cases, we do it awesome, and in other cases, we do it really poorly. Like a lot of times, like, okay, good, go make characters. But generally what happens, they will sit next to someone who is a senior person in the thing that they do, and that person is responsible. We don't necessarily have a documented process, but we do other things of like, it sounds dumb, but like for the first while they're there, is like people people that are on their team and doing what they're doing, I forget how long we do it, usually for 4 or 5 weeks, but they take them to lunch at least once a week, right? So we try to get them, because for us, the onboarding is not just about what their job is, it's about becoming a part of us, and kind of like the Borg, I guess, I don't know. And and because it's odd, I still feel like, and maybe this makes me more of an emotional CEO, I don't know, but whenever I see one of my employees walking from the building off to lunch by themselves, I'm like, ugh, like we screwed up, and that's something, and I don't always do anything about that, but I'd say that's the part of it. It's the social and it's the tech details of their job. Yeah.
I have 2 quick questions.
First name, company, position.
Probably the top founder of Venture Capital.
Okay.
How did you go about founding a company when it was a pure startup? Even now on track record, you're saying it's hard.
Right.
To do money.
So, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Before I forget the second
Yeah.
one, how do you go about user acquisition?
Okay. So the first question is, how do we fund the company? He's a MasterCard. So we actually, and this is where I guess we were lucky. What they say, it's better to be lucky than good. And that we were able to get the company rolling. We did it in my attic. So I have a 3-story house with a finished attic. So that's where we did that. And we put the first server in this guest bedroom because it was loud. And so we built the company in my house, really off of credit cards, because we didn't actually make very much money at all off of Interplay. So we just sort of used our savings. Now, why, and whether that was smart or dumb, I don't know, but what we were lucky is that because we were already known for what we do, we make role-playing games, and we had at that time, well, the game industry has gotten huge. It's, I don't know, $95 billion a year now or something like that. It's still small at the top. If you started the industry a long time ago, all the people that kind of run all the companies, and back then, which 12 years ago was smaller. And so we just I knew the guy who ran LucasArts, which is the game division of Lucasfilm. So I knew him. And friends of mine, got to be friends of mine, ran a big developer in Canada, a company called BioWare, that was eventually bought with another company for something like $750 million by Electronic Arts. And they were just finishing a Star Wars game, and they didn't want to do the sequel because they wanted to make their own game, get their own intellectual property. And so I kind of called, his name's Simon Jeffrey, who ran LucasArts at the time. And I said, hey Simon, so we've split off, and he's like, oh, let me get back to you. And and then, like a day later, he calls and he says, well, what about this? And he said, can you do the sequel to this game? And I'm like, yeah, make a Star Wars game. Yeah, Star Wars is cool.
That's the best title.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, what was great about that as well, about being Star Wars, and I don't know how this applies to anything else, and it's what actually the guys at BioWare told me. He says, when you go try to get your bank account and you say, oh, I'm working on a Star Wars game, you immediately have legitimacy. And so anyway, so that was a very long way of saying we were lucky. We just funded ourselves to start, and maybe how we did it doesn't apply to a lot of people. Is we were known for what we could do, and there was a project around right at that time that we could launch the studio doing.
There was the user acquisition question too.
Oh, sorry, the user acquisition. So from the standpoint of user acquisition, so most of the products we've done are work for hire. So we actually are just the developer, we're the guy who builds the pool. And that pool is given to the publisher. The game is given to the publisher to do all the user acquisition and do all that kind of stuff. So we don't do that a lot. Now with the last game, Pillars of Eternity, since we crowdfunded, we owned it. Again, that has just needed to use more traditional. It's PC, it's not mobile and tablet. So it really is just uses more traditional social media and marketing and PR, going to trade shows and stuff like that. It doesn't actually, we don't use a lot of individual kind of user acquisition type stuff that you would with a mobile title. And a lot of that, like a lot of the marketing and PR in that is just based upon people's knowledge of us. And so that's worked out pretty well.
So 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Philip, co-founder of Knowledge Bank Products, Turbo Review. You talked a lot about culture and role-playing games, and I've certainly played in my day, way back in the industry started, Baldur's Gate.
Oh, yeah.
So
That was one of the ones I worked on.
So, what about the balance of gender? How do you deal with that in an organization?
Yeah, that's always complicated. So, you know, as all technology companies, you know, I think everyone's challenged with the fact that unfortunately, you know, all the programming resumes we get, you know, there will be 95 men and 5 women, you know, and I think that's always a challenge. Now, I think we're lucky compared to maybe some other technology fields in that, you know, we have art, we have writing, we have design. Writing, I mean actually like having to write dialogue and stuff like that. So those things are a little bit more, I don't know, there's more people from both genders that want to do those things. But it is a challenge, and whether this is right or wrong, you know, when I talk to our hiring manager and when we talk about it internally, we want there to be more women at the company. Because you know, we just think it helps in a lot of ways. It makes parties a lot less weird. No, it's not in the employee handbook, I swear. So no. So we actually say if we have two, and I feel weird saying this, like it's almost wrong for me to say this, but if we have 2 equally competent people that we want to hire for a position, and one is a woman and one is a man, we will hire the woman. And I try to come up with weird, because to me that feels like I'm doing something wrong but right at the same time. I don't know, but that's what we do. But what has gotten to be less of a challenge in particular over the last, I would say, 5 years, gaming has become much more just ubiquitous. You know, kind of everybody games, and I think, and it's kind of I mean, if you ask kids in high school now, you know, men, you know, girls or boys. And you say, well, you know, hey, do you think it'd be cool to work at a game company? And they're like, yeah. So I mean, that's helped us, and you know, and I think it's so I guess that's what's changed. But we've had to be active in trying to recruit women, and I think it's been good for good for the company that we have.
One more question.
Anything else?
Cool. I think we got it taken care of. Fergus, thank you so much.
Very welcome.